Progressive lawmaker Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has unfortunately decided to provide cover for the failures of the Obama administration back in 2009 when he had a supermajority in the Senate and had the ability to codify women's reproductive rights, which would have put women in red states in a much better position today. But alas, he went from campaigning on that issue, saying that he would pass a federal law protecting reproductive rights, to being a president who said, it's actually not one of my legislative priorities, okay? I know if you really care about that issue, you voted for me because of that issue. It's not really a priority once I'm elected, you know. Anyway, let me just note, there is a caveat. AOC also did something wonderful in sharing resources for women living in these red states, certain ways that they can still practice their reproductive rights and kind of get around the reproductive restrictions that are put in place in some of these red states. She had a tattletale on Twitter who was like, "Oh, AOC, look what she's doing, everybody! Look, she's showing people how to get around abortion bans," and she was defiant about it and said, "So what?" So I appreciated that, but I don't think that progressive voters put her in Congress to provide cover for the failed Democratic establishment, but here we are. So this all happened in the context of, a back and forth with her supporters. I think this is on Instagram, but she had posted this. Pro-choice politics with real power and numbers is sadly a much more recent phenomenon in the United States than many realize, like extremely recent. People say, oh, Dems had years and years to do this, but did you know that the first time the US ever elected a pro-choice majority to the House was in 2018? The Democratic Party / voters simply did not have the voters or solidarity on this issue that they do now. And swing state voters weren't willing to support strong, reliably pro-choice policies until very recently. It's still shaky in some areas of the party. From 2018 to 2020, we had Trump, so codifying Roe didn't go anywhere. And in 21, the House successfully did pass it, but the filibuster is blocking it in the Senate. So not only is there some cover there for Obama's failures, but also more regurgitation of the excuses that we've heard from corporate Democrats about this. Now, another Instagram user asked her, I keep seeing that Obama could have codified Roe, is that true? And honestly, she gave more of the same. I don't really feel like reading through the same excuses that we've heard from corporate Democrats. And yeah, I'm being harsh because this isn't a joke. I'm not interested in any progressive that we here at TYT fought for to get elected into Congress to now turn around and provide cover for the very people who are sitting around twiddling their thumb without a care in the world as our rights are being stripped away. Not interested. Obama absolutely could have codified Roe, but as I've shared with you before, I think it's important to read his exact quotes on the matter, because when he was campaigning, let's go to graphic 4 here, he had a completely different take. In 2007, Obama promised Planned Parenthood that the first thing I'd do as president would be to sign the Freedom of Choice Act, which effectively codifies Roe v. Wade. Now he says the bill is, quote, and this is a direct quote from Obama in 2009, not my highest legislative priority, as he put it at a recent news conference. I think that's relevant information to share with your supporters, AOC. The fact that he went from campaigning about passing, these protections for women, the first thing I'm gonna do. And then as soon as he gets elected, not really a legislative priority. And I'm not buying this argument that, well, there's just there were Democrats who weren't strongly in favor of reproductive rights at the time. Well, back in the 1960s, there were all sorts of lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who weren't in favor of equality in this country, who weren't in favor of passing a civil rights bill. But Lyndon B. Johnson was able to do it. Because guess what he did? He rolled up his sleeves and he went to work. He understood what political power is. He understood how to use carrots and sticks. And I apologize, I'm about to read some graphics right now, and I know it sounds dense, but it's just really important for you guys to understand, including for progressive lawmakers like AOC to understand that if you think it's impossible when you have a majority, I mean, much less a supermajority in the Senate, you're just weak. Obama went into the presidency already giving up on reproductive rights. He didn't even try. Okay? And so what did LBJ do in an effort to essentially ensure that he had the votes he needed to pass the civil rights bill? Well, Johnson took off his jacket. This is according to a piece in The Atlantic. Took off his jacket and tore into the legislative process intimately and tirelessly. The best hope of moving the civil rights bill from the House Rules Committee, whose segregationist chairman, Howard Smith of Virginia, had no intention of relinquishing it, was a procedure called a discharge petition. If a majority of House members sign a discharge petition, a bill is taken from the committee to the chagrin of its chairman. Johnson made the petition his own personal crusade. And again, he was relentless. After receiving a list of 22 House members vulnerable to pressure on the petition, the president immediately ordered the White House switchboard to get them on the phone wherever they could be found. Johnson engaged in an army of lieutenants, businessmen, civil rights leaders, labor officials, journalists, and allies on the Hill to go out and find votes for the discharge position. He cut a deal that secured half a dozen votes from the Texas delegation. He showed Martin Luther King Jr. a list of uncommitted Republicans, and as the author and historian Caro writes, told King to work on them. He directed one labor leader to talk to every human you could, saying, if we fail on this, then we fail in everything. As a leading Southern senator put it, we could have beaten John Kennedy on civil rights, but not Lyndon Johnson. Cenk, like what happened? What happened to politicians who understood power and were willing to wield it to get things done? Now we have progressives providing cover for useless, feckless Democrats in Congress and in the presidency in years past.
So I know exactly what happened. I detail it in my book that's coming up. Money happened. 1976 to 78, Supreme Court passed 2 decisions saying that you are allowed to give limitless money to politicians. And what did corporations and really wealthy do? They immediately, literally purchased our politicians. And then from then on, both Republicans and Democrats, that's a key part, and Democrats became the tools of the rich and of corporate power. So Obama and Biden are liars. They lied during the campaign trail. Biden says, I'm gonna schedule marijuana, total lie. I'm gonna get rid of $10,000 in student debt, didn't do it. These are all executive actions, he could do it tomorrow. I'm gonna do 20 things on his economic agenda, never did any of them, never intended to do any of them. The $15 minimum wage was supposed to be the bare minimum, didn't do that. And in fact, he had his top allies in the Senate vote against it because he's a liar, never, ever, ever intended it. And so now this is not allowed in mainstream media for people to say the truth and say, yeah, our politicians are obvious liars. Obama said on the campaign trail that it would be his first priority. Then he got in office and he said, no, I was lying, I don't care. It's not even a priority. He had a super majority. Yeah, but I used it to pass Romney Care, a Republican healthcare plan written by the Heritage Foundation, the most conservative think tank in the country. That's the only thing he passed because they're all economically Republicans, but you'll never hear that in mainstream media who do nothing but lie for them. But AOC is in a different category. AOC is suffering under the second problem. She doesn't take corporate campaign cash. She's not influenced by that, and I don't think she's at all corrupt. Her problem, including all of the progressives in Congress, including Bernie Sanders, is that they got brainwashed by Washington. The minute you step into Washington, they tell you the most important thing to do is to kiss Democratic ass. And if you're not kissing Democratic leadership's ass 24/7, you will be tarred and feathered. And that part is true, you will be tarred and feathered. The mainstream media will viciously attack you and say that every problem that the Democrats have is your fault. Hey, it's called courage, look into it. Yeah, take the goddamn hits and fight. So yes, AOC has taken 1 million hits. Yes, she's fought more than all of them. Yes, there's good progressives that fight on some issues, but they still are under the spell of Washington. They live in that toxic toxic culture. And they believe in a deference to authority. Oh, Biden and Obama. Oh, you great, great Democratic leaders. You think AOC would call Obama a liar? Not one progressive in Congress would ever call Obama a liar. They would consider that the rudest, most offensive thing ever. Women's rights being flushed down the toilet, a little less offensive in Washington. No, I'm not exaggerating or joking. If you called Obama a liar in Washington, that would be considered 1,000 times more offensive than Roe v. Wade being overturned. 1,000 times more offensive. In fact, here, I'll make a prediction for you. At some point, some Democratic operative and everyone in mainstream media will even use this exact clip to attack me and any ally of mine, saying, can you believe that he dared to call the beloved angelic Barack Obama and Joe Biden liars? How dare you? No, I'm not here to cover up their lies. I'm here to tell you the truth because I'm in news. He lied, Biden lied, and they progressives in Congress who are not at all corrupt, but who are literally, I'm sorry, I know you're gonna hate it, but you've been brainwashed into thinking that you're supposed to be compliant and complicit. No, you're supposed to super aggressively fight back against our opponents, which are also clearly Democratic leadership. And if you don't understand they're our opponents, when they destroy every bill of ours, and when they make sure that we cannot get women's rights and voting rights passed, then you're hopeless. So wake up already. I'm trying to help you. Wake the goddamn up. Obama didn't do anything because he didn't want to do anything.
Wasn't his legislative priority. When the man tells you who he is, you should believe him, AOC. You weren't elected in that position to defend the weakness of Democrats. You're supposed to fight back against them. And unfortunately, in this incredibly important moment, we're hearing about how, what could have Obama done? He had a super majority in the Senate, but what could he have done?
Okay, Anna, just one quick thing. It's not just about the past. They could do it right now. They could do it to Kristen Sinema. She claims to be for women's rights. She claims to be pro-choice, but she's preventing us voting and making abortion legal nationwide because she says, no, the filibuster is more important to me than women's rights are. Then why don't you actually put her on the spotlight? Say that one right there, Kristen Sinema. She's a goddamn liar. She doesn't believe in women's rights. She believes in the stock market. She believes in getting rich. She helped to lift the filibuster so they could raise the debt ceiling. So she thinks the stock market's important enough, but women's rights and voting rights are not important enough. Women aren't important enough, black people aren't important enough. That's Kristen Sinema. Why don't you do that? Why doesn't AOC do that? Why doesn't every Justice Democrat do that? Oh, rule number one in Washington, kiss the ass of Democratic colleagues. That's not, I know, I formed an organization, Justice Democrats. That is not why we formed it. It is the exact opposite reason of why we formed it. You're supposed to fight them. It's Kristen Sinema, it's Joe Manchin, it's Joe Biden. Name the goddamn names. What's Pelosi's plan? Nothing, zero. Name the goddamn names. Fight them, otherwise step the hell aside, because you aren't doing any good.